What's good, patrons? We are here for another Patreon segment. I got my guys here with me. Wongo Okon from Uproxx. How you feeling, my brother?
We chilling, man. We good. It's good vibes in the city.
I love that.
Out in BK.
Jordan Rose from Complex, the face of Complex Music, IG Reels. How you feeling?
I'm still representing for the eaters and the smoochies and the munchies.
That's
worldwide.
ridiculous.
Ice Spice, if you're watching this, I'm not from the Bronx. However,
You want to get dirty?
I do have Nike Techs.
Okay.
All right. You should have wore it.
I know, right?
This is a really wild
I
start.
love a nigga in Nike Tech.
Well, I mean, you got the Travis. So like, if you got that, you gotta have a Nike Tech.
I got him somewhere.
Yeah, Ice Spice. I like my man's.
To transition, we're going to have a fun mental health discussion, and we're going to play a clip first from 50 Cent. He had a quote recently where he said, "Depression is a luxury." I'm going to play the full thing for you, and we're going to have a discussion about how we feel about that. So let's hear what 50 had to say.
I think that they create their own path, and everybody does in life. Like they just, it's different things. Like certain things I don't believe in, based on. I think the things you go through make you who you are, and in my journey, like there's certain things that I'm not really. I don't even let it into my system like that. I think depression is a luxury.
Wow.
Because where I'm from, you can't afford to be depressed. You got to pay the bill, right?
Right.
So you gotta go to work. You gotta get up. You gotta go do what you gotta do. You got people right now that's at work that don't feel like being there, but they got responsibilities, so
Yes, sir.
they feel uncomfortable while they're working, while they doing what they gotta do. Like, when these guys get in a slump and they just decide that they're not gonna do anything, I'm like, where they do that at?
Right.
Even when you're on the street, you got a pack. You just decide not to come outside.
Yeah.
They're gonna beat you. You're gonna beat to death. Wait till you come out.
On the surface, I disagree. I think that's a very easy thing to disagree with. Depression is a luxury. I think when you think about what he had to say more, and you also recognize the generation that he grew up in and how mental health wasn't prioritized, they weren't as sensitive to things, I understand where he's coming from. There's certain aspects of what he said that I might align with. I can't say I agree. But there's certain things that I align with, like kind of navigating difficult times and still putting in the work. Like that's something that I agree with. Like I don't have the luxury of being able to shut down and just do nothing.
Right.
So that I get that. But on the flip side, being a mental health advocate, which I know we all are, like I recognize sometimes you do just got to give yourself that time to just do nothing and chill and feel how you feel. Sometimes you don't even recognize when you're depressed. Like I really didn't get in touch with my states of being until I got older. Like I took this class, it was like a winter course, which was the psychology of or I think it was like abnormal psychology. So I learned what OCD actually is. And when you learn these terms and what they mean, you kind of become more aware of them. So I think I've become a lot more aware now of when I'm slipping into depression or feel depression, and kind of how I need to handle myself. And I think we all handle ourselves differently. Some people, their battery is always going. They keep going regardless of how they feel. I respect that. But I think making that blanket statement was wrong. It's definitely something that I don't agree with. I would love your perspective, though.
Yeah, no, I think I quoted it. And like had some conversations with people about it. And I think one thing that 50 ignores is the idea that somebody can be like a functional depressive, whereas like you can be depressed, right, and still go through the motions of the day. And I think it gets reduced to that, like instead of looking forward to work or like being like an active participant in your day, you're just kind of just going through the motions and just kind of floating through and just type thing. I guess like doing the bare minimum. But it also kind of, and I had a conversation with one of my friends from high school, shout out Noel, and we always have these like weird, like not weird, but informative, like political, social, mental health kind of things, and he brought up the point where like the idea of like a functional depressive shouldn't really be a thing, in the sense of like it's very tied to like capitalism, where it's like you have this condition, right, where in a ideal world, you're supposed to take time and talk to a professional or like, you know, do whatever to get out of that and return to some state of normalcy. But you are now working through that and not giving yourself the time and also risking it getting worse because the way capitalism works, because you have to work. Everything revolves around money. If you're not doing this, you're gonna lose a job, you're gonna lose your house, lose a car, like all these little things, right? Because capitalism just takes such an overbearing presence over mental health and just self-care and things like that. So, he kind of pointed out that the idea of functional depressive shouldn't be a thing. Like, you shouldn't have to figure out how to function through it. But I think, I wish we had more of a conversation. I was moving around too much and I didn't get to dive into this as much. I do think that, especially as people of color and with the kind of stigma that is against depression, because I know with like my parents, this conversation will never it wasn't really a conversation because I didn't want to talk to them about it. But when Anthony Bourdain passed away, like my parents were like, you know, you have all this money, you're able to travel, you're able to do all these things, like, what are you depressed about, kind of thing. And it's like, it's not so much being depressed about something, it's just being depressed. Like, you have depression, like you have this condition. And no amount of money, no amount of success, no amount of fame, no amount of ability to do things that the middle class people wish they could do, like no amount of that will make that go away. So it may make it easier to access brief moments of happiness, but it's not long lasting to the effect that it will, you know, remove that depression. So as 50 is talking, I can hear his comments coming from that state of like, just that way of thinking that my parents also had, because 50 for sure will say some wacky ass shit and just point blank incorrect shit where you hear it and it's like, nah, nigga, you're bugging. But this one, when I heard it, I was like, this is just like the thought process that, like, at least in like our generation of like the Gen Z people or like really late millennials, they're trying to erase and like, you know, put out a better understanding of these things to people so that we can understand it better, and for the people who are, you know, suffering with these kind of conditions, they can be treated better. So, yeah, I think for me, it wasn't so much that 50 was trying to flex. I think he just doesn't understand it the way that it needs to be.
Yeah, I feel like exactly what you said. I feel like in this society, in a capitalistic society, work is prioritized over well-being.
Absolutely.
So it's like, that's the first layer, and then the second layer is like, because of that, the socioeconomic barriers between poverty and good healthcare that would allow you access to therapy is lacking. So it's like, coming from somewhere 50 came from, growing up, and healthcare in general was already a difficult thing to acquire. Therapy, or, you know, the concept of mental health treatment was super foreign. That's the same way why people who have a lot of people with mental health issues that are in the hood are just looked at as your crackhead on the corner or the crazy person on the block. When in most cases they might be schizophrenic, they might have a mental health issue that was just never treated because of a lack of access.
Yeah.
Right.
So I feel like that's also something that informs his opinion. I think it's really those two things of like, when you're in those situations, you have to then work out of them. It's that hustle mentality of, to get out the hood, you have to work really hard. And then work becomes the most valued thing. It's like, that's the same reason why people say like, you know, I feel like it's the same school of thought of when people say like, you're in this situation because you're lazy, you know, without discounting any of these other variables that aren't in your control.
That just make your situation harder than it needs to be.
It's like, I was thinking about this actually recently. I learned this in school, of this concept of the deserving versus the undeserving poor. And it's this concept of like, and it's often always predicated on race. It's like when you're walking down the street, you see a white guy, you think, oh, he might be a veteran who's homeless, or oh, he might be just someone who's down on his luck. But if you see a black guy who's homeless, you think he's a crackhead, or you think he's on drugs, or he's strung out. And so it's like people are less likely to help someone who they don't think is deserving of help. And when in reality, it's these things that we're talking about, the capitalistic state and the lack of access to help, that all play a part into this mentality that you sometimes unconsciously have. Like I think 50 just unconsciously has this opinion because of the environment he grew up in, and understanding that the only way to get out of that environment was to work through it. So like he couldn't be depressed in his environment because then he would have just stayed there, when that's not really the case. It's just like Wongo, you said, the capitalistic state making work the golden ticket to happiness, basically.
Yeah. You gotta look at like therapy and like just the idea of like seeking it out and all that. Like that's something that in our community, like that is something that's being more appreciated and pushed, you know. And one, it's not like this cheap thing. So to your point of like not having access to it, even if it was something that was pushed as during 50s like time growing up, how was you gonna get it? Like there wasn't.
Healthcare isn't free in this country, so it's like, and even if it is, like I feel like a lot of healthcare packages do not include therapy. So it's like, it just like the concept, the lack of free healthcare is ridiculous in and of itself. But then it's like, so then it's compounded with mental health issues. And then on top of that, like I wrote about this when I was writing about Kendrick's album and him talking about therapy and kind of just how like more big, large artists have been talking about therapy lately. Obviously, like rappers like Joe Budden and others have talked about it a lot in the past, like Cudi. But like at that time, recently, Kendrick and Drake have been talking about going to therapy. And it brings up just like how those conversations are never had in our communities because of really just like, you know, number one, you may not have healthcare. Number two, if you have healthcare, it's hard to find a therapist, like a black therapist, if you want to, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think the percentage of black therapists is ridiculously low. And then you look at the numbers of people who go to therapy and then stop because they weren't able to find someone who looks like them, or they weren't able to find someone who could relate to them. It's like, I think people of color have the highest drop-off in starting therapy and then stopping it just because of a various amount of reasons.
And then even if you do find someone, you have to hope that these like socioeconomic, like the environment that you live in remains that way, so you can sustain whatever living you have to keep going to that therapy.
Precisely.
When shit changes,
you can't afford therapy anymore.
And then you can't. You only maybe did 50% of the progress, which is like, okay, cool, it's better than nothing, but like you need to get to 100%. You know,
right?
That was the whole reason of you doing this, of getting into therapy.
Yeah, it's like therapy is treated as a luxury when it's as fundamental as going to get a physical. It's like your mental health is as fundamental, if not more, than your physical health.
Therapy is a physical for the mental, bro.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like it's just really, it's really sad. Like when I hear things like this, because I disagree with 50 for like a lot of fundamental reasons about a lot of other things he says, but this I don't think was rooted in like him trying to be funny or
like
him
a troll.
Yeah, like I think he has this thought process because of these external factors that he isn't in control of that makes him think like this, you know?
Yeah, he definitely didn't articulate himself best. Like saying luxury, that's really, if he said anything else, I think people would maybe be like, because it's not a luxury to be depressed. Like depression,
even that
like,
sounds...
like with the physical stuff, like the weight gain and like being tired all the time and the mental stuff, like all that, like that's not a luxury. There's nothing luxurious about feeling that.
But
way.
I think he also ignores that for people of color, that the pipeline of depression is like shorter, I guess, in terms of like people who may have access to therapy who aren't getting into it. It may be, or people who he thinks have the luxury to be depressed. It is that, okay, depression, it builds up, then you're not going to work, then you're not, not getting out of bed, right? And then if things get worse, then we start talking about things like suicide and that kind of thing. For I think that middle part of like not being able to go to work, that gets taken out, and then it's just depression gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and as you're trying to juggle everything, it just gets so bad that you get to these very bad possible outcomes, and it's like you have to recognize that that is the result of people being depressed and thinking that they can't afford, or knowing that they can't afford to not go to work because it will affect their family, this and that. And then that pressure certainly doesn't make anything better. So then you almost double the pipeline and like how fast everything goes. And then you just get to these very dangerous ends where it's like, this person should have had help. They should have been able to access it. We shouldn't have to live in like this capitalistic society where they think they can't afford it, don't have the time. It's not going to be beneficial, you know, in a greater good type thing. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of like little holes in it that he's kind of missing in
and none of this shit is normal. I just saw like a video of like this guy criticizing this woman who was like, 40-hour work weeks are crazy. And then the guy was like, I work like 100 hours a week.
You shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, like that shouldn't be something that you're like that's not like that too is crazy. Like it's like, that's the thing. Like we normalize these things that aren't normal. It does not make sense where if you feel like in such a way that you still have to fucking go to work and you have no excuse for it, because that's just something we all do. Like these things that we just do don't make sense, but it's so challenging to alter something that has been so preordained, like to say like a 5-day work week. Like people like posts come out all the time of like a 4-day work week. A shorter work week would make more sense. Like it would make people happier. The same amount of work would still get done. But at least in this country, it probably will not change because this has just been what it is for so long that status quo is so, and same thing you're talking about, like past generations, it's so challenging for that generational gap of like something has been done the same way for so long, or something has been thought about the same way in terms of depression of like,
and they've seen success through it that they think that's the only way.
Yeah, so it's like, why change it when it's like, no, that shit was just nuts when you were doing it too. You just got through it. Yeah. But it's like that shouldn't be the norm. Like
doesn't mean it's okay. Just figure it out.
Yeah, no, 100 hours. That's like 13 to. Man,
dog.
It's ridiculous. You should not be doing that.
But our society, especially I think as Black people, we've really like my parents, I know especially, it's always been like work hard, figure it out. Like that's one thing I've always like a conversation I've had with them is like they really pride themselves on providing a roof over my head, food, clothes, all that. But I'm like, you could have done none of that. You could have sent me to community college, but as long as I had like that emotional kind of understanding and connection, that's really what I wanted. Like I just wanted y'all to like understand me in that way. But they came up in the era where it's like feelings meant nothing. Like you just got to figure it out, get it done. And so our culture has really glorified this no sleep, work hard type culture. Like figure it out, get
hustle
it done,
culture,
get it done. Hustle culture.
Hustle
and it's
culture.
like
I hate it.
that shit'll kill you. Like you need rest, you need time off, you need leisure. Like they say, work hard in your 20s and 30s, enjoy your 40s. Like, no, you kind of need to enjoy life now. Like, you need some leisure time now. Like, that balance. Find that balance because...
I have a plan to get where you're going, but like, also plan to, like, relax and rest. And, like,
you could be ambitious. You could have drive while also not, like, working yourself into a hole. I feel like there's such, like, this interesting dynamic of people feeling like you like to be driven, you have to have like the marathon mentality is like you don't stop at all. Yeah. When it's like even in marathons, people like stop for a minute,
grab
like
water.
You know what I mean? It's like
cruise,
it's like you don't have to go like to go the same pace in a marathon. You won't finish the marathon. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I feel like that is something that also like people have to remember. It's like also the time and era of work that we're in is so much different. Like 50, 60 years ago, people were staying at the same job for their entire life. Yeah. And like upward mobility was like a real thing, and also the ways like the jobs themselves were different. So it's like you can't convert that to today because the work landscape is so different, the economy is so different. people aren't staying at their jobs for 50, 60 years. You know,
Yeah.
that's not a thing anymore. And so you have to like take that into account when thinking about the just get up and work mentality, you know?
I think you also have to remember that this world and this government is not going to take care of you for doing that. Like,
Facts.
we see it all the time with veterans, we see it with teachers. Like, you can commit your life to this profession that absolutely affects people's day-to-day lives. And when it's all said and done, they're just like, okay. Here's this little plaque that says how long you worked. Appreciate you. Good
Like,
looks. Have fun out there in that world and, you know, figure it out. Don't come to us if you need anything because we can't do shit for you, but, you know, you got it.
That's like I feel like that could be a whole pot in of itself. Like I have such a strong opinion about how much we value entertainment over like the fundamental things that keep society running.
Yeah.
Like teachers, like nurses, like these like the things that are in our infrastructure that keep, like if a meteor was coming to the earth right now, they're not saving the NBA. They're not saving me. They're not saving a journalist. Okay, they're saving teachers, nurses, doctors. Yet so often people like teachers are the ones that are the least paid.
Yeah.
Yet we value like we value entertainment. Like at the end of the day, I'm not shitting on athletes at all. But like Coach Popovich said something in the interview years ago that I always remember. He's like, talking about basketball, he was like, listen, this is a kid's game. Like, we're getting paid millions of dollars to put a ball in a hoop. Meanwhile, your teacher in Wyoming has to have a second job for teaching the next generation. Like, things like that is just so, it's just the lucrativeness of entertainment. Like, the billion-dollar industry of it for just entertainment. It's crazy to me. It's mind-boggling, man. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So yeah, I think the other thing is like coming from 50 Cent, who we know has been a millionaire for almost 2 decades now. Like you speaking on, and granted, rich people get depressed, as you just said, Anthony Bourdain. Having money, having all that shit, it don't mean nothing. Like like I'm experiencing now, having more money, more problems. Like for real, like you really do have more problems figuring shit out. You know, having a higher appetite for different things, like it really does come with more problems.
Wait till taxes start to shake shit up.
Exactly. Can't wait for this tax return to hit though. We lit.
I want to work in.
But yeah, I think coming from his perspective as well, it's like you speaking on depression being a luxury. I mean, of course you see it that way. Like you could not work the rest of your life. Get Rich or Die Trying, the royalties still hitting. Power, BMF, like you've done so much to amass a certain level of wealth and you know, fame where like money comes to him. So yes, you, like him saying that is going to come off a certain way, especially speaking on people who are literally working to survive and maintain, like
and get 10% of what you if that.
Like you having that perspective on those type of people is always going to come off a little odd because. Like you know, I'm sure you were there at one point, but right now, like there's nothing similar between you and those people. Like, yes, you still have that work ethic, you're still doing stuff, you're still creating stuff, but like you telling people depression is a luxury, it's like, nigga, fuck out of here.
Also, we, you know, not for nothing, and I'm not so much criticizing this, but we glorify 50 for getting sprayed 12 times. Like, I'm sure if talking to someone who got through depression to someone who got through a gunshot wound, he would respect the person who got through the gunshot wound more.
Yeah.
And that's not to say getting sprayed 12 times and living is not crazy, but these are also like mutually exclusive things. You know, I feel like that might be also where some of his perspective is coming from, of like he gone through real challenges, which would be getting sprayed up, and then so he looks at anything that's not that extreme, like that type of extreme, as lesser, when like those two things really shouldn't be compared.
That's a good point.
You know?
Yeah. I agree. Well, great talk, gentlemen. Very insightful young gentlemen we have here, Black Kings, as they say. So, patrons, we want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Sure. Do you think depression is a luxury? Do you agree with 50 Cent? Is that nigga crazy?
There was a lot of people who agreed, actually.
I saw it.
Like,
especially when he's like, when these guys get in a slump and they just decide they're not going to do anything. I'm like, well, where they do that at? Like, a lot of people really did agree. So, it was a very polarizing discussion, but I like what we came up with, especially the focus on like capitalism and access and all that, because that's real. It's really real.
For sure.
There's a lot of people who have to fight depression in unconventional ways. And yeah, especially being on the other side of therapy now I've been doing it for like 7 years now. Like it's just really opened my mind up to like, one, we shouldn't, it's so stigmatized. Like, oh, if you go to therapy, you're crazy. Like, I am probably a little crazy, but like, but it's really those sessions you have with your therapist where you're not going through like something in particular, and they like ask you questions and open your mind up, and like those are the sessions I really value more than when I have one thing in particular to talk about. And so that's why I encourage everyone to at least try it. You know, if you can afford it, if your insurance covers it, like talk to someone, and like you really shouldn't decide based on one session, because usually that's the introductory session. Like try it for a month, try it for 2 months, and don't just go when like something is wrong, but like go just in general, like just having that outlet, that objective third party who's not involved in the situation to hear you out and give you another perspective, because it's really changed a lot for me. So yeah, we want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let us know how y'all feel. If y'all go to therapy as well, salute to you. For those who have not decided yet and may be thinking about it, I encourage it.
Please do.
And yeah, for Armon, for Wongo, for young Jordan, we'll see y'all soon.
Ice Spice, if you're watching this, I want to be your
Jesus
prince.
Christ.
I want to be your prince. No colonialism.
The mental health episode.
Baby girl, how you feeling? I've been out in the world, staying busy, taking time, getting right if you miss me. I've been out in the world, staying busy.
Mondays 9 a.m. Party with the gang. Every week, tell a friend. Busy over everything. Busy boys, gotta call now. Ain't you heard? Caught the vibes. We put you on. Got the slides. I'm the SARS. Running down.